Joining us now, ladies and gentlemen, is a man who's been a head coach for a team that has a very involved owner and a team that actually doesn't have an owner. Yep. A Super Bowl champion, a living legend, a Yinzer icon. Ladies and gentlemen, our coach, Coach Mike McCarthy.
Hey, Coach!
Coach, how you doing, Coach? Good-looking dog back there. Is that blue ribbon 11-time title dog back there?
That's Gus. Yes, he is. That's the best picture of the week up here. It's a winter wonderland. So yeah, that's the best thing I got for you this week.
I love that.
That's all Gus.
Gus is a good-looking dog.
He's a stud. Gus is a stud.
Yeah, Gus looks like he has a good time. He wants to be out there finding the ducks.
He's never had a bad day. That's for sure.
Oh, neither of you. Neither of you. It feels like every time.
Oh, I'm having a great time. I mean, I got the Christmas colors on. I mean, I'm ready.
Hell yeah.
The holiday season's about. I wish you would have told me that you're going to have Tepper on in a Christmas sweater. I could have, I'm sure I got a bunch of ugly Christmas sweaters I could have threw on today, from the good old days.
Yeah.
So,
well, we appreciate you.
It's that time of year.
We appreciate you celebrating, Coach, because it is that time of year. It is meaningful football time, and it's been a long time since you haven't had to have a job fully focused every day of your life on winning games in this particular time of year. So I'm happy you're enjoying it. Let's wrap up the Tepper conversation. I let in there that Jerry Jones, obviously very involved owner. Green Bay doesn't have an owner. They have like a group or whatever that makes decisions. For the Tepper story and for the Carolina Panthers story, they might actually win the NFC South. The Carolina Panthers might be hosting a playoff game this year. Just a couple years back, 250 people in the stands. Everybody hated them. I would say brand, image, likeness, everything. Lowest maybe in all of professional sports, Carolina Panthers. They hire a new GM. They get Canales in there. Bryce Young gets benched. Then he comes back. He starts doing his thing. And I genuinely believe, as somebody that has followed this story from very much the beginning, Tepper becoming a better owner is a massive piece of why they've become good. Is that an accurate assessment from somebody that's in an actual position and understands what a good owner can do and what a no ownership can do? What are your thoughts on that entire vibe between owner and how team is actually run?
I definitely agree with you. I think it's a big part of it. And I think that, every leader has to go through it, whether you're the owner, a president, a general manager, or a head coach. I mean, for as successful as he's been in his, in his business life, this was a new opportunity, a new arena to compete in, and definitely there were some growing pains. But no, I agree with you 100%. Just to have the opportunity to interview with Carolina in 2019, and I go look back at that conversation and compare to where they are today. I think they're leaps and bounds ahead of where they were back then. They were talking about building a facility down the road there in South Carolina, that whole process. And, we're talking about facilities. So, I mean, now you see what he's done. And I think the most important thing is he's a fellow Yinzer. So, I mean, you knew he was going to figure it out.
Tepper's a Yinzer?
Oh, yeah. You didn't know that?
Oh, no. I feel like a terrible person. I was burying him for a long time. But I made him better, made him stronger, is what I was saying.
Yes, you did. You pushed the right buttons.
Hey, I hope so. I hope I was a part of the solution as opposed to the problem, because we love the city of Charlotte, and good luck to the Panthers as they go. I don't know if you saw this clock. We are 56 hours away, 7 minutes and 33 seconds, 32, 31, now 30 seconds away from Phillip Rivers returning to a football game for the first time in 5 years. How do you feel about this? Obviously, he's going to be able to spin it. We've seen video coming out of practice from both Romeo Boyd and Anthony Calhoun. He can still spin it. The ball is still getting to where we want it to go. Nobody's expecting him to be able to move, including himself. What is your expectation of a grandfather taking the field for the first time in 5 years? Strictly because, and I would like to answer this because I have a lot of respect for Cam Newton, and I have a lot of respect for all the other quarterbacks that are potentially out there. He was signed because he knows the offense. We're in week 15 right now. We don't have time for somebody to learn this shit. We need to kind of get and go. Just what are your thoughts on it all and the expectations of the outcome?
I mean, I think it's awesome, and I think it's a great story. Personally having an opportunity to work or, really learn from older quarterbacks, back in the 90s with Joe Montana and Dave Craig. Brett Favre was an older quarterback. So I mean, these guys have seen so much football, and their time clocks they're ingrained. I think the fact that he's able to come back, and I think the most important thing in this transaction is the fact that he has history in Indianapolis. They have a renowned training staff there. There's a relationship, so they're going to know what kind of shape he's in, because you worry about fatigue injuries and things like that. For guys that have been out, the stresses that the actual movement in a game, opposed to the movements that they go through in their training. segments. So I think the fact that he's back in Indianapolis, he's with Shane, he'll run the run game. That'll be a breeze. The communication, the language, and all that. And I think the protection adjustments will be something that he just needs to, get back into that. But it's going to be the timing throws. I think just as much as he can throw to those perimeter guys between now and Sunday is going to be the key. Just to kind of give him those automatic throws that he's had his whole career. When you get out there on the numbers out there on the Audubon, the timing throws to the individual cuts, the inside throws, and then red zone, the third down will be the toughest things for him because there's the height of pressure and man to man and things like that. And it'll be curious to see how the defense reacts to him being out there. What kind of coverage they give him in passing situations. So if there's anybody that can do it, definitely Phillip can pull this off.
Hey, no speed limits out there. Go ahead, AJ.
Coach, what would your game plan be? I guess if Phil is thrusting the lineup after 5 years away, obviously you say, oh yeah, I want to get the ball out of our hands quick. All this. We ideally like to run the ball. It's not always easy, but what would you do? I guess if you're coaching Phil for his first game back.
Well, I think you hit the most important thing. You got Jonathan back here. Let's not forget about that. So let's make sure he gets his touches. But I think clearly for Phillip, and it's really what I like to do every time you start a game, is try to make first and second down as easy as possible as possible for him, because the challenge is the situational football that he's going to encounter, and the speed of that, and just being back in the flow of that's going to be, I think, the biggest challenge for the quarterback position. So, and I mean by that is try to find him some rhythm throws, try to find him some free access situation, create some type formations and in motion that gets him off the ball type easy completions early, so he can get into a rhythm and just get back into what Sunday afternoon really feels like.
I hope Phil Rivers utilizes Tyler Warren just like he did Antonio Gates. Mm-hmm. Michael Pittman would be willing to die on a football field to go get a ball. Phil Rivers knows that. And from my understanding, the competitive juices and the chirping has not slowed down at all. The guy's excited, the guy's eager, and the guy's about to kick his Hall of Fame status back another 5 years. And that's going to be a first ballot Hall of Fame talk after he wins the Super Bowl with the Indianapolis Colts this year, just like Coach McCarthy said, just like this guy just said here in front of his dog Gus. Looking to win that trophy right there, the one that's kind of peeking out right there. That's what Phil Rivers is looking to do with the Indianapolis Colts. Now, you won one of those with the Packers. Ty has a question about that.
Yeah, Coach, after the Packers got a massive win at home against the Bears to go back into first in the NFC North, how confident are you in them going into the playoffs? Jordan Love obviously playing his best football right now. I think the team is as a whole in a league where there's maybe 3 to 4 teams who could go to the NFC Championship. Just how confident are you in the Packers moving forward?
Oh, I love what the Packers are doing. I think number one, the most important part of your football team is the defense, and that defense is playing lights out. I can't say enough about the consistency of how they played week in and week out. I think it's the most consistent component of their football team. Secondly, the run game is definitely there, and they had the 2 big post throws for touchdowns by Jordan. So I think they're playing very well. The ability to play at home, I thought that was a hell of a game Sunday, versus the Bears. You look at the first half versus the second half, and you cannot win enough close games throughout the season, especially this time of year. I've always felt that, winning close games was critical to have during your path, because, I look back and AJ can attest to this. When we were 15-1, we actually, we had too many blowout wins, and not that you can ever have too many of them, but you need those tough games. And I think when you get into these late division games, it gives you that. And I think it's great preparation for the playoffs. But the best thing we got going in Green Bay right now is that defense. And, the perimeter's getting healthy. You can see them getting better each week, so that's exciting. Ball distribution, I think Jordan's done a really nice job with that. But you have to like Ty what the Packers are doing.
How about on the other side, the Bears? You think they're about a year out? I think, AQ Shipley comes in here once a week, And I said, you think they're about a year out with Ben Johnson and the Bears? I think they're a really good team. I'm talking a year out from being like, Super Bowl conversation team. And AQ goes, if the quarterback can learn some football, basically was his response. It's like, quarterback definitely much better this year than he was last year. He was like, yeah, but he's got to continue to go. He obviously has a new situation, new system this year than he did last year. They're having success. Ben Johnson is super genius offensively is how we all view him, right? Don't we all?
Yes.
We all view Ben Johnson super genius on the offensive side. Is it just Caleb's development that's basically going to decide whether or not the Bears win a Super Bowl or not? Like, how do you kind of view the Bears over the next 2 years if you had to project?
Well, it's definitely arrow pointing up, and I think sometimes when you win a lot in your first year, particularly close games and things go your way. Look at Washington last year, and then look what they were able to springboard that into with an excellent run all the way to the NFC Championship game. So, I do believe in year to year, but frankly, I wouldn't be too hard on Cleve because he's different.
Who?
And he makes plays. Cleve Williams.
It's Caleb. I mean, Jesus Christ, you were nowhere near.
Okay, you've never made a mistake on that.
I knew what you're talking about, Coach. We knew what you're talking about.
I was just giving you an opportunity to interrupt you. I love it when you stop talking about sports. We end up talking about some other bullshit over there.
Hey, hey, Cleve is a dog though. No, but
Cleve.
Guys, sorry, Caleb. I cut you off there. I didn't know if you were talking about like a quarterback coach. I honestly did not know. I apologize.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not as down on him as your comment there is. I see a guy that makes a lot of plays. He is in a structured, an offense that asks a lot of the quarterback, which is a great thing for him. But it's his first year in that offense. So yes, are there growing pains? I would think clearly. I mean, I'm not in there. Don't have access to any of that type of information. But there's definitely some growing pains. But the guy can make plays with his feet and his arm. And when I look back in the history of some great quarterbacks that were a little bit bouncing off the walls their first couple of years, and if they could just stay healthy and keep playing, I think they're going to have a hell of a player there. But the best thing they got going for him is Ben, because he has them in a structured. He has a system. He has to learn to run that system, and then everything he does with his feet and his playmaking ability is a bonus. And that's a good place to be in quarterback development, in my opinion.
Yeah, they got good people around him. Coach Ben Johnson, Coach Cleve. They also got D out there. They got D out there, Coach.
What's that?
No, I'm not doing it. Coach, you did not deserve that. That was rude. But let's talk about staying healthy, shall we? Let's talk about staying healthy, especially at the quarterback position. I was on the Colts, obviously, when Andrew Luck was just getting, he thought it was disrespectful to football to give up on a play. He got hit a lot of injuries took place, serious injuries took place. Another one happened, and then that led to an early retirement. Now all eyes are looking towards Cincinnati and have been for a while. Go ahead, Con, man.
Yeah, Coach, with the Bengals and Jeff I can't even get it out. I was going to say Jeff Burrow, but with the Bengals and Joe Burrow, he gave a press conference yesterday and basically said, like, hey, the fun of the game seems to be, not leaving him, but he's not finding joy right now and everything, and that's kind of understandable with the injuries he's had. I believe, he's 29. He's only played 3 full seasons. I believe that's accurate, and he just came back. They were still in it. Unfortunately, with the loss to Buffalo, it's very, very hard for them now to kind of find a way to the playoffs. You were coaching Dak Prescott when he went through, his kind of worst time as a pro with, his injuries and some of the terrible things he had to go through to get to, the point where he's at now. What do you say to a player like this when they're in a situation where there doesn't seem to be much hope at the end of the tunnel? Do you think, Burrow, this is kind of one of those things where you just kind of have to go back to the drawing board? What do you think of this whole situation, and how do you think the Bengals as a front office and an organization can kind of fix Jeff Burrow?
I think number one, overall, injuries is clearly the worst part of the game. When you watch players go through injury, and the amount of time they put into each and every season, the prehab and the sports science and advancement, and to think that how much Joe has been through as far as getting back from the injuries of the past. Yes, I could definitely see why he may be feeling the way he is. I think you have to, number one, for people that have to go up there and do press conferences on a regular basis, everybody wants you to, be honest, and give a real answer. And the fact that he gave one, I think you have to respect that, because that's very personal to him. And I think he gives you, inside of what he's thinking about right now. But yeah, coming back from injuries it's a long process. I mean, Dak in particular. I mean, there's clearly, nothing that you can't feel for these guys, because playing quarterback and really playing professional football, it's a 12-month, 7-day-a-week deal. I mean, these guys, whether postseason and what they get through as far as their time off and going into it. But I think what do you do and what do you say? I think, frankly, you rely on the relationships and the support, that you have around him. I mean, just from my understanding, he's a very well respected young man, not only in Cincinnati, but in the National Football League. So I think the people closest to him and relying on that, and just to make sure he's talking to people and going through this. But I think he gave you a very honest answer to a question in a press conference that he could have easily threw away. And also just, I think it shows how much he cares, how much he puts into it. And injuries is the worst part of it. And there's been a lot of great players, whose careers have been cut short, quarterbacks who maybe have never got off to the start or maybe have the finish in their career because of injury.
They're saying some crazy stuff about Joe Burrow leaving the Bengals and maybe getting traded and going somewhere else.
Oh yeah, they're definitely going to trade him. They do that.
Yeah, that's what the Bengals do. Yeah, the Bengals.
He could Carson Palmer.
Well, he could say, "I'm either going to retire, or you're going to let me out here. I'm not eating the sauce."
Yeah.
Out of the janitor.
I'm not paying for the chili, the skyline that you guys are serving. That's what happened. That's just what happened back in the day, allegedly. I think reportedly. Really? Carson Palmer, allegedly, reportedly, I think on the record said, I'm going to retire.
Which one? I mean, Christ.
Come on.
I think it was all of them. It was alleged at the beginning, then it was reported, and then I think Carson himself came out and said, that is kind of how the conversation went. So what I was trying to give you was a full dive of journalism. It was alleged at the beginning, then it got reported, and then I think Carson came out and said, I told him I'm not doing it anymore. And then he goes to the Raiders, and then he goes to the Cardinals, and he has a full career afterwards. But he had to, say he was going to just... I'm not playing football anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing it if you're not going to let me out of here. Cincinnati Bengals aren't like a big move type place, But on that note, they did spend massive amounts of money seemingly to keep Joe Burrow happy. And then now, if you don't win, is anybody ever happy? We just want Joey B to know, we love you, buddy. Mm-hmm. We love you. You're good for ball, Joe. You're good for ball.
In that same press conference, he seemed pretty happy when they talked about Pokemon cards.
Do you remember when everybody was doing Pokemon Go at training camp? Was that happening with your team?
Probably was, but I didn't participate. That's probably a better question for AJ.
AJ, were you guys Pokemon going?
No, we were not.
Don't lie.
I'll tell you,
lie.
Me and Vinatieri are walking through training camp, and there's an open area.
That's when people were walking off of buildings and stuff. Is that what you're talking about?
Outer windows and everything
into
like
volcanoes,
that.
yeah.
Grand Canyon.
Had their phone like this. It was Pokemon Go. Coach, you know anything about this?
I do not. I mean, superficially.
Yeah, you're a 30,000-foot view. 30,000-foot view. You've heard the stories, obviously, but it was the thing that kind of captivated everybody. Everybody's playing his Pokemon Go. Had to be on your phone, and people were just on their phones. They were walking right off buildings, right into trains, just into things. It really captivated the world. Not NFL guys. Well, maybe, I don't know, but we were walking from the cafeteria area to team meeting after practice at night, and me and Vinny are just walking through, and we got offensive linemen, linebackers doing his Pokemon Go. We got a meeting in 10 minutes. We got the Pokemon Go.
Let me catch it. Let me catch it.
Any other position, maybe, any other position. But it wasn't our starters, obviously, but it was in the offensive line room kind of doing their thing. And it's season hasn't started, but it's already over, basically. We might as well go ahead and see how this goes. But it was a good game. Hey, it was. I didn't play any. I didn't catch any of them. I would try to catch them all.
Sure.
But it had everybody, including our team, and it was not good. Indicators, it was I don't think it was great for anybody. Okay, AJ has a question for you, Coach. Sorry about it.
Yeah, Coach. speaking of that, teams that especially don't have any chance, it seems like this year there's more teams that have a chance to win it. And usually going in, there's like a handful of teams I feel like, okay, they actually have a chance. But now we talk about parity throughout the league. Why do you think that is right now? Why are there so many teams, I guess? Seems like more teams that truly could go on a run and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think the definition of parity is adjusted, every year, and definitely it's what the league wants, and I think what the commissioner wants. And personally, I think it's awesome. I go back to 1993 was my first year, and that's right when Plan B free agency ended. And I always remember the speech that Marty Schottenheimer he gave, particularly at the beginning of the season, and he said, "Hey, there's three categories of teams in this league." He says, "You got the Super Bowl contenders." He goes, and at that time, he was flat out. He just said it. He said, "San Francisco and Dallas, they're better than all of us right now, and Buffalo's probably right up there." He says, "So that's the group that on paper could win the Super Bowl today." And he said, "Then you got about 12 or 15 teams that are in, the second group, and those teams, our team, we need to work." Throughout the season to continue to get better, continue. And he had his plan and was stating his vision and how it's so important to November, December, playing your best football into the playoffs. And then he said the third categories are teams that, they just have so many challenges that they won't be able to overcome. And, and then certain really good 360 viewpoint of the league, and I've always looked at it that way. And I think as everybody gears up in the off season, we go into training camp, and I'm sure you guys talked about this on the show. I don't know how many teams you probably thought were Super Bowl contenders this year. I think the number's bigger, probably 10 to 12, and then there is probably that second group is probably 12 to 14, and then you have another 6 to 8 down there at the bottom that they just have so many challenges they can't overcome. And I think that's really how the league has gone of particularly late. And I think these division games at the end have been very helpful. I think the drafting and all the other, the people utilizing the free agency, the increase in the cap. And, I think the parity of the league is great. And I think it really illustrates the importance of, the organizational, impact as far as facilities, sports science, your support people, their importance should be, higher valued. The value of coaching should be higher. Not to be self-serving, but because it is so competitive, in the arena of player acquisition. Because with the draft and and there's so much information that's out there today compared to where we were 30 years ago on these guys. And just think about a player coming out of high school, going through college, and by the time he gets to the NFL draft, just the amount of information on that particular individual. So parity is awesome for the league, and I think you see it more and more each year. But teams who you thought were in September going to win the Super Bowl, where are they at today? And then you look at the teams like Indianapolis, or was probably in that second group if they can get going, and Daniel comes along like the way we thought, and can now get into that. That New England was probably a team that you thought, hey, they were young, they did some things at the end of the year that you really liked. Drake May was shown what he can be. So I just think, did I get the name right, Pat?
Yeah, you did. But I thought you were going to do more about the Colts, and then as soon as we got the countdown clock for the Rivers returns, and you moved off the Colts, so you went to the Patriots, and then Connor was losing his mind. So you did a great job for all parties there. But I was hoping we were going to talk about how Phil Rivers maybe takes them from we're in that middle group, and then we're moved in the top group, and then all of a sudden quickly we went down to the bottom group. Oh no, these guys got a chance, and then 44-year-old grandpa comes in. All of a sudden we were we go right back up that thing. In 55 hours we find out. 55 hours we find out.
Well, we're in the top group in the Colts right now, so definitely you can go from group 1 to 2 to 3. I'm excited to watch Philip play. I think this is I think it's awesome, and I think the fit with Shane and everything he got going. So I'm like I said, maybe I got to say it again. If anybody can do it, Philip Rivers can do it. And 55 hours and 46 minutes and 48 seconds.
Wow, that's pretty good out of you right there. You say, that's multiple.
Pay attention.
Yeah, you saw it. Yeah, Phil, you can see you later, Phil. See you later. Thank you. It's a nice little reminder to pop that up like, holy hell, old man.
That's cool. Your graphics are unbelievable. your production team's incredible.
Yeah, the boys are really good.
They're special. Some of the, I mean, that Galileo thing, I'm still laughing at. Where the hell you guys pulled that out of?
Well, you know, mathematics is
cool.
the universe's love language.
Well said.
You know, that's what.
Well, it is.
I don't even think love language.
Galileo's singing it. I mean,
I see a little silhouette of a man. Can I do the mandango? Very, very frightening. Galileo, 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 let me go. Oh, I'm just a poor boy from a poor family.
He's just a poor boy from a poor family.
Anyways,
AJ, you must have missed the rehearsal there.
no, AJ won't put his Wiz Khalifa was on our team for one day, and he said, "Boys, put your hands up." We immediately, everybody's hands went up like this. AJ, 2 feet away from Wiz Khalifa. I don't think so, bub. I'm not your puppet.
He actually gave him the finger.
Yeah, he did. It was unbelievable.
You've
Just
seen
like
it,
he
Coach.
did to you. Just like he did to you on the field. Yeah. So thank you, Coach. If you could send him a side note about buying in, we'd appreciate that. Thank you for bringing that up, Coach.
I'll coach him up.
Thank you, Coach.
All right. I see Gus in the snow back there.
Yeah.
That means magic's happening. That means meaningful football is happening. AJ, we let you off the hook there too easy. I don't think we yelled enough, but we will get back to that after Coach McCarthy is no longer here. I feel like we are disrespecting Coach McCarthy, airing out kind of our inner team dynamics right now. But AJ, you need to buy in when we're singing goddamn Galileo, okay? And that is just for the
I
good
got a
of
little bit of a delay. You know the delay. You know, there's other programs
Shut
where
up,
guys are
dude.
connected virtually.
Always
you know,
excuses
like,
with this
step on each other.
asshole.
All right,
Always.
let's move on.
They're like
Let's move on.
socks.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Everybody's got them.
And Bones got him a bunch of crusty ones.
All right.
What?
That's
What is happening?
That's Gus in the snow. Okay, it's cold time. It's very cold here. We got snow. We just had a snowstorm. Kind of out of
We
nowhere.
did.
And it's coming again.
It's supposed to come tonight. It came earlier, but that means one thing: holidays. Okay, Thanksgiving already happened. We got Christmas, New Year's. We got all the holidays
Valentine's Day.
that are happening right now. More importantly, though, we got playoff pushes, playoff runs, meaningful football, which means one thing. Go ahead, Tone.
Yeah, Coach, obviously you coached in Green Bay, Wisconsin, outside, very, very cold, a lot of snow, and then down in Dallas, inside, it's warmer down there. Everyone talks about the advantages of cold weather teams and playing in the cold weather all the time. There's 7 games this weekend under 32. 4 of those games are going to be under 20 with wind chills about 0. Is it actually an advantage to those teams that are used to playing outside in the cold, or is that something that we make too much of?
Oh, I think it's definitely an advantage. I mean, I've always felt that, and I wouldn't say from a psychological or mental. I think it's more about the opportunity to handle the football in the cold. And AJ, when we were in Green Bay, we would always practice outside. The only thing that ever took me inside was the wind. High winds. I always felt it was important to be outside on the grass, and we were fortunate to have the facilities up there. With the heated field. Just the fields. The practice fields were identical to the field, at Lambeau Field. So I think it's critical, and the most important part is the ball, is handling the football. We would do extra ball drills religiously in the outdoor work because that's where I felt the biggest advantage was. And thank God for Aaron Rodgers and thank God for Brett Favre. But the big hands, the long arms, ability to torque the football, and I always loved it when the weather was cold and you didn't have the high wind in there because you always felt great confidence in your passing game because of the ability to throw the ball, and I thought it really helped our perimeter group create separation in that weather, because defense is half a step slower in that weather on the outdoor surface, in my opinion, in those elements. So I think there's clearly are advantages playing in that weather and practicing outside and being that more from the elements standpoint as far as how you playing it, not the psychological, it's cold. And because hell, I mean, the players are probably in the best spot in the whole stadium as far as keeping warm. They're out there running around, they come off, they got the jackets put on them, the heating. I mean, the only time I think I ever went to the bench was in cool weather to talk to the quarterbacks, and I really wasn't over there talking to them. I was over there to get warm my ass up because I was freezing. But I think that the elements do favor the teams that do play, and I always felt.
Yep.
And I thought it was more catching the football in some of the games that, we had lost over the years. And it really came down to, who handled the football better. And I think that'll be a big key in all these games played this weekend.
NFLweather.com, shout out to them for providing all that. And we talked to Jordan Love the other day as he was promoting Toyotathon, in which he has dominated during. But during Toyotathon, there's a lot of bad weather at Lambeau, and he's always played well during it. And he talked about how, I don't love it. AJ said it. AJ's from Ohio. I'm from Pittsburgh. We're from cold places. Everybody's like, they're from the north. They like the cold. Nobody likes the cold. It's just whether or not you've already mentally had to go through the entirety of how bad it sucks, which is what happens on the daily basis. I think that's a huge deal as well, which is why you pointed out we practice outside every day unless the wind would affect it. I think that is the big advantage, Coach. You agree?
Yeah, definitely. And, the quarterbacks that play in the dome, that are not used to it and maybe don't have big hands, that's something they got to deal with. That ball comes off their hand a little differently too. So, I agree with everything you've said. I mean, no one likes playing in that weather, but I do think it is an advantage to be able to practice in that weather.
What, Tua got any of these games, cold games coming up, or had anyone? Because remember, he was literally the example that everybody gave. Like, this Miami Dolphins team's very good. Then he traveled up to Kansas City. It was like -5 or whatever, and it was just the complete opposite. Like, clearly getting beat by the cold weather. Go ahead, Tom.
Monday night, it's supposed to be 18, I believe, in Pittsburgh.
We're going to find out, Gumpy.
We pound the rock now. We got an offensive line now. It's a different ball club than years past.
I'm excited for this. Who are the mentally tough teams that can handle the weather, and who needs to have home field advantage through the playoffs? That's a big deal through it all. And is Phil Rivers going to be a guy who in 74 hours, 39 minutes?
Hey, what?
There it is.
I can't see the first number, so that's been off by 20 hours?
Nope.
No, game got flexed. It was initially supposed to be a 4 a.m. local kickoff time. They moved it to 4:25.
Easier, yeah. So we just got that information.
Just came through the wire.
Who discovered that? Who discovered that it got flipped from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m.?
Connor dropped in my ear there, and he goes, if at 4:25, would we not be 72 hours away from the game? And I looked up at the clock, and I quick about it's like, yeah, it's Thursday. And then, go to the back room. Hey, we're way off on that thing. How do we even? So while you were giving a great answer about the weather there was quite an explosion of joy around here with how stupid we are. Just know that 74 hours from now, 38 minutes and 40 seconds, Phil Rivers returns to a football field.
Let's go, baby.
Hey. Seattle, good luck. Yeah, right. Good luck. He's been waiting 5 years for this.
Should we have a West Coast clock too, just so they know? Or
just 71, 38, 25. Right?
Nope, I don't think it changes. Actually,
you're right.
Jesus, let's not.
Save time.
Speaking of time and everybody having one, Connor has a question about when the time is right.
Yeah, Coach. Hate to go there with you with Green Bay, but towards the end of your tenure there, you were a legend. You won a Super Bowl, and the time just seemed right for you to be leaving, whether you felt that or not. But right now with Kansas City and Baltimore and Pittsburgh, it does feel as though three places, three legendary coaches, and not that their seats are hot, but the conversation at least is there where, hey, there needs to be some sort of change. Kansas City's much different, of course, just because of the very recent success. But with Baltimore and Pittsburgh, it just feels as though they've fallen short very consistently here in recent memory. Do you think that those coaches, whether it be Harbaugh, Tomlin, or Andy Reid, have a sense of the end is close as far as those particular locations? Or do you think they don't even hear that, they don't feel that, they're just staying the course? Like, what was your experience with that in Green Bay, and what do you think they're going through right now?
I'll say this. I think, number one, all three of those men, in my opinion, deserve to step away when they feel it's time, and hopefully that'll be a mutual understanding between them and their organizations. Because when their time is up at the three organizations they work for, they will be missed. It may take a year or two, or at some point, trust me, those are three Hall of Fame caliber, football coaches you're talking about. Not only that, as far as who they are as coaches, they've built a championship program. Winning a Super Bowl is very difficult, and I've said this before on the show, and I believe it wholeheartedly. But sustained success in the NFL, in my opinion, is much harder. To be able to win week in and week out, year in and year out, to put your team in the playoffs is extremely difficult because we've seen it time and time again where a team gets hot and probably plays their best football the last 5 weeks of the season, but was so up and down and just got into the playoffs. You look at our particular team in 2010. Now we felt we were a Super Bowl contender when the season started. We felt we arrived in 09, but we had a tremendous amount of challenges with the injuries and kind of slugged it around. Aaron missed 2 games, with 2 concussions. I mean, we had injuries all over the place, and we were kind of just scrapping to stay in there and really fought to get in at the end. We weren't playing really great football. Even the last game against the Bears, it was not our best outing, but we still won the game to get in the playoffs, and then we got going, and so we went on a 4-game tear, and I think all the adversity that we went through gave us confidence. So I think you got to be careful about that. But I understand the fans. I'm getting to watch it from this chair. I talked about this last week. I can't believe the volatility, the up and down, because you look at Pittsburgh 7 days ago. The way we were talking about them, now they're in first place. So I just think, and I think number 8 will throw the ball very well come Sunday in the weather. But I just think you got to be careful. Watch what you wish for is my message here.
But everybody wants more, Coach. Everybody wants more.
Hey, watch what you wish for.
I mean, the Philly media is calling for, is Jalen Hurts going to be the starter?
To Coach Sirianni, getting asked that question actually right now. He in the presser yesterday. Hey, you thinking about quarterback change?
One more bad game.
They just paid him $700 million, and he just won a Super Bowl last year. And things aren't going great, and people were addressing Patullo immediately throughout the entire season. But now Jalen, year after winning the Super Bowl as quarterback, like, hey, you thinking about
Tanner McKee looks good.
You talk about the volatility. It's like that's a good thing for the league to have that amount of passion, but it is in those buildings. And I appreciate you saying you didn't even realize it was like this. You have to be able to keep everybody going the same way, because nowadays, more so than ever, all that shit can get in. It's in everybody's hand. All that shit's in everybody's hand that is walking around there. Players, coaches, you name it, trainers, managers, they all see all of it. So once that starts getting in, I assume that is when it ends, right? That's the goal of a head coach in the welcome to the modern world. That is like the modern world head coach though, right? The noise is very loud, maybe louder than it's ever been, and more accessible for players, coaches, you name it, in the building.
I think it's a great lead into why a head coach his messaging is so important. I think working in Dallas was a tremendous experience on so many different fronts, but it really gave me a great view to frankly working at the content capital of the world. I mean, content is generated at every turn because there's value in that. And I think when you look at some of these situations that we're talking about, you got content that's being created through dramatic questioning in a press conference, and it's sometimes the reality and the common sense is not even in the building. So I think you got to have the ability to filter and have an understanding, what content is really being generated for why it's the agenda to why it's being generated. But the reality of it is, now for something that you feel is wrong with that championship program that's not getting you to the spot that, that was getting you before, then you're having a different conversation. But I don't think that's the case in Kansas City, Baltimore, or Pittsburgh. So I think you got to really, really, take a close look at that. And I think, frankly, that's, you look at the ownership in all 3 of those places. You're talking about great ownership, and I think those are internal conversations that common sense will prevail, and then they'll make educated decisions, but I think all 3 of those coaches will be involved in that decision making.
Coach, penthouse to outhouse so quick. Everything is what have you done for me lately? And for those coaches, you talk about Andy Reid, Tomlin, and Harbaugh, and you mentioned at the beginning, I think those coaches have earned their ability to be able to say when they want to leave. Then we just saw what happened with Pete Carroll in Seattle a couple years ago, and then we see what happens immediately afterwards. We saw what happened in New England whenever they make the change from Bill, then they make a change, it doesn't work out, they make another change, and they immediately have success. It's like you see those 2, but we don't talk about how about Tennessee kicking Vrabel out, getting a new coach, and it going even like there's a lot of the other side too that happens whenever you decide to move on. The grass isn't necessarily always greener, But all these fans want to say is, it'd be nice to just see it, though. Like, see if it's greener, see if it is maybe a little bit more potent if we could do it, maybe a little bit more exciting, maybe less we have a winning season and we won a Super Bowl again, is what Yinzers are saying. Baltimore Ravens are saying the same thing. We shall see it all works out. Let's look at tonight's game. Okay, Tampa Bay Buccaneers can still very much go win a Super Bowl. They can win the NFC South. They can have a home playoff game. They're taking on Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons, fresh off an ass beating from the Seattle Seahawks. Bucs just lost to the Saints. It is now 5.5 points. The spread, the Bucs are favored at home on Thursday night on Prime. Coach McCarthy, you would be very, very good if you were to actually be picking games for Thursday night. 9-4. 9-4 is the record. We went through all your text messages. We went through everything. 9-4 is what you would be right now. How do you see tonight going, Coach?
Well, I'll say this. I thought I made my pick this morning when it was 4.5, but that's fine. I'll participate. No, I think number one, when I look at this game, here we go again. He's going to say, yeah, it's a division game. I think you got to always bring that into light, especially division games. At the end of the year. And I think, anytime you feel like the field's tilted one way or the other too high, I think you got to really look at counter intuition. And that's it. And I go back to the division games, how well these teams know each other. So I do think it's going to be a very good game. The first thing that I see when I look at the matchup, I think it's going to be critical. The team that gets the ball to their running backs, I think, will be probably the most successful on offense, regardless if they hand it to or throw it to them. I think you got two dynamic running back groups in this game. I think you got good matchups up front. It looks like Tampa's healthy. I really like the way the edge players are playing in Atlanta here down the stretch the last 4 or 5 weeks. Leonard Floyd's back. I think they got a really good rotation there. So I think you got some really good matchups. I think Atlanta's going to have to shorten the game some. Try to. I don't think you want to get into a lot of series exchange with Tampa Bay, because Tampa Bay to me is still the best team in the NFC South. I think their ability to both run it and throw it is they got a lot of balance throughout that team. They got Bucky Irvin back. It's great to see him healthy. Dynamic young player. So I think the balance of Tampa Bay would prevail. The defenses, they both bring a lot to the table. I think schematically, Tampa has always been a challenge, schematically, especially if you don't play them very often, but it is a division game. So I looked at the weather. It's going to be a beautiful night down there, 58 degrees, 4 mile an hour. And, I think with that, ball distribution should be very high. The vitals are always there. Who takes care of the football versus who takes it away, no question. But I think if Atlanta can shorten the game, it'll serve them well. But I do like Tampa Bay in this game with the points.
Mike Evans is back too, so we'll see a show there. Baker Mayfield's going to go crazy on primetime per usual, and we can't thank you enough, Coach, for joining us. Tell Gus we said hello and the entire fam.
You bet. Happy holidays. I know we're just getting started, so you guys have a great weekend.
Happy holidays, Coach. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Coach Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, Coach.